Welcome to AudioCert, where the official study guides are brought to life. Today we're diving deep into a topic that honestly is the cybersecurity equivalent of the 911 call. The moment everything shifts from proactive defense to urgent action. We're embarking on Chapter 15, Incident Response, straight from the EC Council Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator, or CHFI 31-well-49 certification guide. Now, if you're tracking with us, you know CHFI is all about equipping professionals to detect, analyze, and, effectively respond to cyber attacks. It's about being the digital detective, really, extracting crucial evidence and ensuring cyber criminals are held accountable. And incident response is where all that theoretical knowledge slams right into the practical reality of a breach. It's what happens when the carefully constructed defenses are breached. And let's be honest, in the cyber world, it's often not if something goes wrong, but when. That's why understanding this chapter is absolutely vital. Our sources hammer home a core mantra: proper planning prevents poor performance. Nowhere is that truer than when you're in the crosshairs of a cyber incident.
Over this deep dive, you're going to gain a solid understanding of not just how to respond, but also how to proactively prevent these incidents. We'll explore the structured steps for navigating these high-stakes situations, the multidisciplinary teams involved, and the meticulous process of preserving and handling electronic evidence so it stands up to scrutiny. Think of it as your tactical playbook for when chaos strikes.
And that idea of a tactical playbook is spot on.
Yeah.
We often get caught up in the technical minutia of cyber attacks, the bits and bytes. But the real insight here is that incidents are rarely just technical glitches. They are organizational crises. They can trigger profound legal ramifications, lead to massive financial losses, and inflict potentially irreversible damage to an organization's hard-won reputation. This isn't theoretical stuff. This is about equipping you with practical, actionable knowledge to not just react, but to strategically mitigate, recover, and crucially, to learn from every single incident. We'll be connecting the dots between the what happens and the why it really matters.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the start then. We're talking about response, but our source material immediately jumps into prevention. It seems a bit counterintuitive at first glance, but I imagine there's a critical reason why prevention is so foundational before we even discuss what happens after a breach. What's the core principle here?
It's an excellent place to start, yeah. And it really is the bedrock of any robust security posture. The fundamental principle is simply this: incident prevention is most often less costly than incident response. Think of it through a health analogy, maybe. Would you rather invest in regular checkups, a balanced diet, and exercise to maintain your health proactively? Or, wait for a major medical emergency, then face the enormous cost, the stress, and potential permanent damage of urgent care, surgery, and prolonged recovery?
That makes perfect sense. Pay now or pay a lot more later.
Exactly. The analogy holds perfectly in cybersecurity. Preventing an incident, even a minor one, saves an organization immense resources. We're talking time, money, brand reputation, regulatory fines, even employee morale, all compared to dealing with the chaotic aftermath of a successful attack. The true insight here isn't just knowing that prevention is good, but understanding that it's a strategic economic decision. You're not just stopping an immediate attack, you're avoiding an entire cascade of negative consequences. And often you're building resilience that pays dividends far beyond just security. It's smart business.
That perfectly frames why we invest so heavily upfront. Okay, now when we talk about those proactive health measures in the digital realm, where do we even begin to build that first line of defense? What are our sort of go-to tools?
Right, the first line of defense. It comes in many forms, but the most foundational are security controls. And at the very front, the gatekeepers are firewalls. These aren't just one type of device, though. They come in different flavors, you could say, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. Think of them almost like different types of bouncers for a digital club, each with a different level of scrutiny at the entrance.
Okay, different bouncers. I like that. What's the most basic one?
The most basic is the packet filter firewall. This is often the fastest and least expensive option. You'll find it frequently bundled with standard network devices like routers, wireless access points, WAPs, and network switches. Its job is pretty simple. Inspect individual data packets based on very basic rules, things like source IP address, destination IP address, and port numbers. It provides, limited protection, especially for incoming traffic. Let me explain. For an outgoing request, like you browsing a website, the firewall needs to allow the response packets back in.
Right, otherwise you wouldn't see the website.
Exactly. To do this, packet filters are often statically configured to open high ports, specifically transmission control protocol, or TCP, ports 1025 through 655 for these responses, but this creates a potential attack vector. An attacker could try to exploit those always open high ports for incoming malicious traffic.
Okay, so the bouncer is quick, but maybe only checks the ticket on the way out, not really vetting who's coming in those open ports.
That's a good way to put it. Fast, but not the most thorough for incoming threats. So, stepping up in sophistication, we have the stateful inspection firewall. This builds directly on packet filtering, but introduces a crucial enhancement: dynamic rules.
Dynamic rules, how does that work?
Well, when you send an outgoing request, this firewall dynamically opens a specific port for just a brief period to allow only the expected response packet back in. This means no permanently open high ports. It significantly reduces the attack surface.
Much safer.
Much safer. These are often dedicated devices, not just a feature bundled in. And they offer increased logging capabilities, which is a massive benefit when you're trying to trace the source of an incident later. They also rival packet filters in speed, surprisingly.
So this is our smarter bouncer, the one who remembers you just stepped out and only lets you back in for just a short time.
Precisely. Offers superior protection, though they do tend to cost more. And finally, the most thorough yet often slower is the proxy-based firewall. This firewall reads more of the packet for filtering decisions, often delving right into the application layer. It's much more detailed. It doesn't allow a direct connection between the client and the end server at all. Instead, it acts as an intermediary. It maintains two separate conversations, one between the client and the firewall, and another between the firewall and the end server.
Okay, like a middleman for every conversation.
Exactly. This allows for exemplary logging, incredibly detailed records, which are invaluable during incident response. However, this deep inspection can introduce latency, making it slower, and it might not understand all the different applications passing through it.
So our analogy here,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a very conscious concierge who physically intercepts every message, reads it, decides if it's okay, then writes a new message to the recipient. Never a direct connection allowed.
Perfect analogy. It's the most secure in terms of visibility, but also the most resource intensive. And the real insight here, isn't just knowing what each firewall does. It's understanding that in the real world, you're not just picking one. You're often orchestrating a symphony of these bouncers, each one tuned to a specific threat, creating a layered defense. The weakness of one is often compensated by the strength of another. And that strategic layering is the hidden art, really.
That's a fantastic breakdown of the different firewall types. Makes a lot more sense now. So if firewalls are guarding the main entrances, what's an intrusion prevention system, or IPS, doing?
Oh.
Is it like a second layer of defense or something different entirely?
Precisely. If firewalls are the external gates and bouncers, then intrusion prevention systems, IPCs, are more like the internal security systems. Think motion detectors, cameras, alarms inside the building. They're designed to catch intruders who somehow manage to slip past that main gate.
Ah, okay, so they work inside the network.
Exactly. They provide an additional layer of protection beyond firewalls. IPS devices are specifically designed to look for network attacks that may have bypassed the firewall and are now trying to operate within the network itself. They're usually dedicated devices, separate from other network components, and one of their greatest strengths is the incredible detail of logging they provide.
More detailed logs, that sounds useful.
Well, absolutely. This detailed logging is an absolute goldmine for forensic investigators trying to understand the full scope of an attack later on. And they are designed not just to detect, but actively prevent intrusions by blocking malicious traffic or resetting connections. Though, for those of you managing security, the real challenge with IPS isn't just deployment, it's the constant tuning. You need to avoid false positives blocking legitimate traffic without missing critical threats. It's a never-ending balancing act.
Makes sense. It's not just set and forget.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so beyond firewalls and IPVs, are there other defensive controls that contribute to this robust prevention strategy, building out that layered defense you mentioned?
Absolutely. Yeah, while firewalls and IPCs are significant, they're part of a larger ecosystem of controls. You need multiple layers. We also have routers with access control lists, ACLs. These are essentially rule-based traffic filters. They can be configured on routers to allow or deny traffic based on various criteria: IP addresses, ports, protocols. Adds another layer of network segmentation and control.
Like traffic rules at an intersection.
Exactly. Then there's virtual local area networks, VLANs. These segment a physical network into multiple virtual networks, isolating traffic between them. Think of it like putting up separate walls within a large office building to contain a fire. If one VLAN is compromised, the breach is far less likely to spread to others. Containment is key.
Smart. What else?
Critically important in today's threat landscape is two-factor authentication, 2FA. This adds an extra layer of security beyond just a password. It requires users to verify their identity using a second factor, like a code from their phone or maybe a fingerprint. This makes it significantly harder for attackers to gain access even if they somehow manage to steal a password.
Yeah, 2FA is becoming pretty standard now, thankfully.
It really should be. And finally, a proactive duo. Vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. These are vital for prevention because they proactively mimic attacks to find weaknesses before real attackers do. They're often required by best practice standards like the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, that's PCI DSS, especially for e-commerce sites. It's often part of the overall System Development Lifecycle, or SDLC.
That's a lot of different controls working together. Now, you mentioned vulnerability assessment and penetration testing sounding similar. Could you clarify the distinction between them? It seems like a key nuance for our listener.
It's a great point because they are frequently confused, but they serve distinct purposes. A vulnerability assessment is kind of like a doctor giving you a thorough checkup to ascertain weaknesses. It's a proactive scan of your systems, applications, and networks to identify known vulnerabilities. It tells you what problems exist.
Like a list of potential issues.
Exactly. Perhaps a missing patch, a misconfigured service, or a weak password policy. It's about identification and reporting, giving you a list of potential security holes. It often gives you a score or a list saying you are vulnerable to X, Y, and Z. It's largely automated and broad.
Okay, so that's the assessment. What about penetration testing?
In contrast, penetration testing, or pen testing, is like a simulated attack performed by a white hat hacker, an ethical hacker. It mimics real attacks to show how a system might be compromised by actively trying to exploit those identified weaknesses.
So it tries to break in.
It does. It doesn't just list vulnerabilities. It attempts to prove whether those vulnerabilities are exploitable and what kind of impact a successful exploit would actually have. It answers the question, if an attacker found this weakness, could they actually get in and do damage?
Ah, okay, so it's more hands-on trying to prove the risk.
Right. It's a more hands-on, targeted approach. Regular testing using either method significantly reduces the likelihood that a real incident will occur by continually strengthening the organization's defenses. One is about finding the holes. The other is about proving if an attacker can actually get through them and, how much damage they could cause. Both are important. Okay, so with that foundation of prevention laid, let's move to clarifying some core terminology. It's easy to use incident response, incident handling, and incident management interchangeably, but they each have a distinct and important role in the overall cybersecurity process. Understanding these nuances is really key to appreciating the structured approach required in these high-stakes situations.
Right, getting the language clear helps understand the process.
Definitely. So incident response is the broadest term. It encompasses the entire practice from detecting a problem, determining its root cause, minimizing the damage it inflicts, effectively resolving the problem, and then meticulously documenting each step of the response for future reference. It's the full life cycle of dealing with a security event, from the moment it's recognized right through to when it's closed out.
The whole shebang, basically.
Pretty much. Then we have incident handling. This refers more to the immediate hands-on actions. The primary goal here is to contain the damage, repair any damage caused by the event, and critically prevent any further damage from occurring.
So handling is the doing part, the tactical stuff.
Exactly. Think of this as the urgent tactical action phase, the doing of the response, stopping the bleeding, so to speak. And finally, incident management. This is the strategic, overarching process. It covers the entire life cycle from the moment an incident is declared, through all the documentation and communication, right up to the post-mortem reviews conducted after the incident has been resolved. It's the strategic oversight that ensures the whole process is effective, efficient, and importantly, continuously improves over time.
Okay, strategy versus tactics versus the overall practice. How do they connect in a real event?
Let's use our house fire analogy again. Incident handling is the immediate action of the firefighters putting out the flames, containing the fire, stopping it spreading. That's the urgent doing.
Makes sense.
Incident response is the broader process. It includes the firefighters' actions, yes, but also the structured process of assessing the damage, securing the scene, investigating the cause, maybe bringing in specialists to clean up. It's the full emergency procedure.
Got it. The whole response operation.
Right. And incident management is the strategic long-term planning and oversight. Everything from establishing evacuation plans and fire drills beforehand, to managing the insurance claims, arranging temporary housing afterwards, and overseeing the rebuilding process to make the house safer and more resilient in the future.
So management includes the before and the after, the planning and the learning.
Precisely. As you can see, every incident truly requires all three components working together in a coordinated fashion for a successful outcome. It's definitely a symphony, not a solo act. #Tech2, building the incident response framework.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the interconnectedness. Okay, they're definitely not interchangeable terms. Now let's talk about the planning itself. What's the absolute primary goal when you're planning for incident response, especially when it comes to preserving potential evidence?
The primary goal, and a truly critical one in incident response planning, is to freeze the scene.
Freeze the scene, like in a police procedural.
Exactly like that. It's about preventing any modification to the area and the systems involved in the incident. Why? To protect and preserve the electronic evidence. This evidence will be absolutely crucial for any future forensics investigation. Computer forensics fundamentally relies on the results of the incident response team's actions. So if the scene isn't properly frozen and evidence gets contaminated or destroyed, the entire forensic investigation is compromised. It could potentially nullify any legal action.
Wow. So getting that initial preservation right is paramount.
It is. It's exactly like a traditional crime scene investigation where nothing is touched until it's been meticulously documented and secured. Same principle applies here. #2.1.1 incident response checklist. And to effectively freeze the scene and ensure consistency, especially under pressure, creating a comprehensive incident response checklist is absolutely paramount.
A checklist. Makes sense. What goes into that?
Well, this checklist guides the team through the crucial initial steps. Key components include things like logging all physical and electronic access to the incident scene, who was there, when, what did they touch or do. It also details scene documentation. This involves meticulous record keeping through sketches, photographs, video recordings, maybe even audio recordings, capturing the scene exactly as it was found.
So really detailed documentation.
Incredibly detailed. For those looking for an excellent battle-tested resource to develop their own checklist, the National Institute of Justice, or NIJ, First Responder Guide is invaluable. It provides fantastic guidelines.
We should link that in the show notes.
Definitely. It truly is the blueprint for ensuring that when chaos strikes, you have a clear step-by-step process to follow to preserve that digital crime scene effectively.
Okay, this is a fascinating area where the technical meets the corporate, the human element. We know incidents happen, but it seems many organizations hesitate to report computer crimes, even when they're clearly victims. What's behind that disclosure dilemma from an organizational perspective? Why this hesitation?
It's a really complex issue, yeah. It's primarily driven by a blend of financial and reputational considerations. Many organizations choose not to report computer crime to authorities for a number of reasons, mainly because of the significant financial loss they can incur if news of the incident becomes public.
So it's about the fallout, the public perception.
Largely, yes. This isn't just about the direct cost of fixing the breach itself. It can come from regulatory fines, a severe loss of reputation that impacts stock price, and a reduction in customer confidence, which directly translates to reduced overall sales. Big impacts. Before landmark legislation like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, that's GLBA, focusing on financial privacy and IPA, the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act, protecting health info. Before those, public disclosure wasn't always legally mandated.
So they could keep quiet more easily back then.
They could. Organizations could potentially sweep breaches under the rug without immediate fear of legal repercussions for non-disclosure. However, the current landscape is vastly different. Today, many federal and state laws now require disclosure when certain types of data, like personally identifiable information, PII, or protected health information, PHI, are compromised.
But you're saying they still try to avoid it.
Well, despite these mandates, many organizations still actively look for, and sometimes exploit, loopholes in these laws to avoid public disclosure. They're constantly weighing the legal minimums against the potential financial and reputational fallout, often seeking to minimize that immediate damage.
What a risky game.
It can be. The annual CSI-FBI study, which tracks cybercrime rates, types, and losses, has consistently shown this evolving dynamic. While there might be a decrease in the number of crimes reported sometimes, there's often an alarming increase in the cost per incident.
So fewer reported incidents, but the ones that happen are more damaging.
That's what the trend often suggests. It implies that the attacks that do succeed are becoming more sophisticated and impactful. And organizations are still highly sensitive about publicizing these incidents due to those direct organizational costs involved. It's a constant balancing act between compliance, cost, and reputation management. Hashtag tag 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 2.1.3 vulnerability resources for the incident response team.
That sheds a lot of light on the internal pressures organizations face. Makes sense why disclosure is tricky. So if we're trying to prevent and respond effectively, what kind of intelligence do incident response teams need to stay ahead? Where do they go to learn about the latest threats and vulnerabilities out there?
Knowledge is indeed power, yeah, especially in cybersecurity where the threat landscape shifts almost daily. The incident response team needs up-to-date information on vulnerabilities to effectively defend against and respond to attacks. There are numerous external websites that serve as excellent resources. Well-known security research sites like Security Focus or Packet Storm Security, for instance.
What do they offer?
They often publish new exploits, vulnerability disclosures, and security research. This keeps teams informed about what attackers are actively using or, could potentially use in the near future. Real-time threat intel. But in addition to these external sites, an equally critical source for vulnerability information comes from within the target organization itself.
Internally, how?
Through internal tools like vulnerability scanners. These are indispensable. The most well-known is probably the Nessus scanner from Tenable Security. These scanners actively probe an organization's systems and networks for known vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, and other security weaknesses. They give you your internal threat landscape.
So external news and internal scans, both are needed.
Both are vital, yes. They inform the incident response team and the broader organization about existing holes in their controls, as well as potential attack vectors that could be exploited. This proactive understanding allows for targeted prevention efforts and more effective incident response planning. It's really a continuous intelligence gathering operation. You can't let up.
That makes perfect sense. You need that constant intel feed. Okay, so moving on. Not all incidents are created equal, right? I imagine a malware infection is handled quite differently than, say, someone trying to bring down your website with a denial of service attack.
Precisely. That's a crucial insight. One of the toughest components of incident response is recognizing that each type of incident has unique requirements and therefore demands specific procedures. You simply cannot use a one-size-fits-all approach. It just doesn't work.
Okay, so let's break down some common categories. What's first?
First, let's talk denial of service, DOS incidents. The primary effect of a DOS attack is pretty straightforward. Stop legitimate users from accessing required resources, your website, your email, whatever it is. There are several ways this can happen. A buffer overflow, for example, in a DOS context, typically doesn't result in remote command execution like in other attacks. Instead, it might simply point the central processing unit, the CPU, to a non-existent memory address,
Causing it to crash.
Exactly, causing the process to crash and terminate. Another variant is a resource starvation attack. Here, the attacker consumes all of a system's needed resources like CPU cycles, available memory, network bandwidth, until none are left for legitimate applications.
Just sucks everything dry.
Right. These classic DOS attacks were very popular until around February 2000. Then they largely evolved into distributed denial of service, DDoS attacks.
DDoS, that's the one you hear about constantly. How is it different?
DDoS attacks are far more insidious because they use zombie servers. These are compromised machines, often spread globally, which are all controlled by a central master system. Since all the malicious packets originate from these distributed zombies, it becomes incredibly difficult to track the attack back to the actual master controller. The source is hidden.
It's harder to block then, too, if it's coming from everywhere.
Much harder. When responding to a DOS or DDoS incident, the first priority is almost always just to restore access to the business-critical process or resource. Get the service back online. To use an analogy, imagine a single person blocking a narrow doorway, preventing entry that's kind of like a DOS. Now imagine an entire flash mob, coordinated from some hidden central command, simultaneously blocking every entrance to a large building that's DDoS. The scale and coordination make it much harder to deal with.
Okay, that paints a clear picture. What's another category?
Next, we have malicious code incidents. This includes familiar threats like virus and worm attacks. The unique challenge with these is that they often leave evidence only in the random access memory, the RAM, of the infected host.
Only in RAM. Wow.
Yeah, which means the incident response team needs very specific procedures to capture this volatile data before it's lost. Lost when the system is powered off or rebooted. A key component of responding to malicious code is rapid containment. You have to stop it spreading to other systems.
Containment again. Seems critical.
It is. This really highlights the 4 tenets of information security we often talk about: prevent, detect, contain, and recover. If you can't contain malware quickly, you're in for a very, very bad day.
Right. Okay, what else?
Then there's unauthorized usage. This is perhaps the most common type of incident, actually. It typically means an attacker has successfully compromised a system and effectively owns the box.
Owns the box, meaning they have full control.
Full control. It means they control system processing and can gain continued remote access, often through what's called remote command execution, or RCE. RCE allows the attacker to run code, often from a shell prompt, basically taking complete control of the attacked system.
That sounds really bad. Like someone not just breaking into your house.
But changing the locks, installing their own surveillance, and having full control over your thermostat and lights from their own home, they have persistent, complete control. This is a very serious type of incident because it implies a deep, significant breach.
Okay, scary stuff. Is there a final category?
Finally, we identify inappropriate usage. These incidents generally occur in one of 2 forms. It could be something like the installation of pirated software on an organization's machines. This carries significant legal and security risks, including potential malware hidden in that software. Or it could be abusing the intended use of a resource. For example, an employee sending threatening emails to a coworker, or maybe using the company's internet to view adult content on company time.
So policy violations, basically.
Exactly. While these might seem less technically complex than a DDoS attack, they happen often and need to be addressed seriously due to policy violations, potential legal liabilities, and the impact on workplace culture and productivity. These types of incidents are typically defined and addressed during the risk assessment phase of incident management, as they involve those policy violations and potential legal fallout. They need clear handling procedures too. #tag33. The people and process of incident response. Okay, now that we've categorized the types of incidents, it becomes really clear that not all threats are created equal, right? And you simply can't defend against everything with the same level of intensity. Before you can respond effectively, you need to know what you're most likely to face and what the potential fallout could be if it happens. This is where risk assessment truly comes into play.
Risk assessment. So figuring out what to worry about most.
Precisely. It's a critical component of incident management. It's designed to sort potential risks into categories typically high, medium, and low, which allows for strategic resource allocation. You focus your efforts where they matter most. The methodology for this involves evaluating each identified risk based on 2 primary factors. First, its probability, the likelihood that the event will actually happen. And second, its impact, the overall effect or damage it would cause to the organization if it did occur.
Probability and impact, okay.
Right. Many organizations use a visual classification chart, often a grid, mapping probability against impact to visually determine a risk's overall ranking. For example, a common scale might rank risks from 1 being low probability, low impact, up to maybe 9, high probability, high impact.
And obviously you focus on the high numbers first.
Naturally. A risk with high probability and high impact would be a top priority for planning and mitigation. The outcome of this whole process is a clear, prioritized list of risks, a ranking of how dangerous each risk is, and, crucially, a set of corresponding controls or safeguards that can help mitigate these risks. This focused approach helps the organization channel its resources wisely. It determines which types of incidents should be planned for first, and which specific procedures need to be developed and tested with the most urgency. It ensures that your incident response efforts aren't just broad, but targeted and efficient. Without risk assessment, you're essentially flying blind, just reacting to whatever happens.
So if we're talking about planning and prioritizing based on risk, who are the actual people involved? Who are the heroes behind the keyboards, the folks on the ground when an incident strikes? It sounds like a lot to handle for just one person or even one type of person.
You're absolutely right. Incident response is inherently complex, dynamic, and requires a really broad range of skills. No single person possesses all the necessary expertise, which is precisely why a multidisciplinary team is essential. It's not just about technical prowess, it's also about legal understanding, administrative capability, communication skills. It's a whole package.
Like assembling a specialized SWAT team for digital emergencies.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah. Let's look at the key roles and responsibilities that an effective incident response team typically needs. First, there's the lead investigator. This individual is essentially the manager of the entire incident response team. Their duties are extensive. keeping senior management updated on progress, ensuring the response moves smoothly and efficiently, and crucially, conducting interviews and interrogations of suspects and witnesses. The lead investigator is also typically involved in the initial creation and ongoing refinement of the incident response plan itself. They're the strategic head, guiding the operation.
Okay, the leader. Who else?
Next, an information security representative. This team member is vital for providing context. They alert the team to possible security safeguards already in place that might impact the response. For example, if hard drive encryption is being used, that could significantly slow down the forensic processing of a drive. They need to know that up front. They can also provide critical information about the system's configuration and help meticulously document the incident scene. They're kind of the institutional knowledge keeper for security.
Got it. Context is key.
Absolutely. Then a legal representative. This role is non-negotiable, really. The legal representative ensures that the entire incident response process adheres strictly to all applicable legal requirements. Their presence helps the team avoid breaking any laws during the response. This protects the organization from further liability and ensures that any collected evidence will actually be admissible in court. They are the legal compass for the team. Critical.
Makes sense. Got to stay legal.
Definitely. Then you have your technical representatives. These are the hands-on specialists. They perform the forensic backups of the systems involved in the incident. They also provide detailed information about the configuration of the network or the specific target system. Given the technical complexity, there's usually more than one technician deployed, often specializing in different areas like network forensics, host forensics, or malware analysis. They are the frontline implementers, the technical boots on the ground.
Okay, the tech experts. And who else is involved?
Finally, don't forget human resources, HR. HR personnel are typically involved to ensure that the organization's internal policies are consistently enforced throughout the incident response. This can include sensitive actions like suspending a suspect's access to systems if needed, or managing internal communications around the incident. HR often works very closely with the legal team to ensure that the response actions are lawful, fair, and help cover the organization's liability. They manage the people side of the incident, which can be just as complex, if not more so, than the technical side.
Wow, that's a truly comprehensive team covering a lot of ground. It sounds like a lot of internal staff could be involved, potentially bringing different departmental priorities or maybe even conflicts of interest, right? How does an organization navigate that careful balancing act?
That's a great question. And yes, it absolutely can create conflicts of interest. It's a real challenge. For example, an internal system administrator who's part of the response team might also be a potential witness, or in rare, unfortunate cases, maybe even a suspect if the incident stems from an insider threat.
Right, that's tricky.
Very. And their primary duty, which is often to restore system availability quickly, might also conflict directly with the forensic team's need to preserve the scene untouched, to not change anything. It's a constant tension.
So how do they manage that?
Organizations navigate this careful balancing act through several mechanisms. First and foremost, clear, well-defined policies and procedures are critical, absolutely essential. These documents should delineate roles, responsibilities, and reporting structures explicitly, especially detailing what happens when conflicts arise. Second, separation of duties can be implemented wherever possible. This means the team investigating an incident isn't the same team responsible for the day-to-day operations of the compromised system, ideally.
Different teams for investigating versus fixing.
Ideally, yes. Third, for highly sensitive cases or where an insider threat is suspected, organizations often leverage external consultants or even law enforcement to conduct the investigation. They offer unbiased perspectives and no inherent conflict of interest. While internal teams have that deep system knowledge, external teams bring objectivity and often more specialized forensic training.
So sometimes bringing in outsiders is better.
It can be, depending on the situation. Ultimately, transparency within the team and a strong commitment to upholding the law and organizational policy are essential to mitigate these potential conflicts. It's about building a robust framework that anticipates these challenges ahead of time. Okay, building on that team structure, let's discuss the actual steps of incident response. While each organization might tailor their approach slightly, every incident, no matter how chaotic it feels in the moment, truly follows a structured process to ensure thoroughness and effectiveness. We can largely group these steps into maybe 3 acts: the proactive setup and initial discovery, then the active containment and investigation, and finally, the learning and long-term improvement.
Okay, a 3-act structure. I like that.
Before we dive into the steps, a brief note on who performs the response. Organizations typically choose between an internal security team, bringing in external consultants, or sometimes involving law enforcement. An internal security team, as we mentioned, has that deep understanding of their systems and personnel. That's a significant strength. However, their weaknesses include the potential for a team member to be a suspect or perpetrator, leading to that conflict of interest we discussed.
Right.
External consultants, on the other hand, bring no inherent conflict of interest, but they come with high costs, can sometimes be difficult to find when highly trained, and they lack that prior, intimate knowledge of the organization's specific systems.
Pros and cons either way.
Definitely. And law enforcement also provides an objective, no conflict of interest approach, but the organization might lose some investigative control to them. The investigation proceeds on their terms. Regardless of who leads, a structured process is followed. Let's walk through the common process, which often aligns with a cycle of preparedness and continuous improvement. Hashtag 3.3.1 preparation. So Act 1. Proactive setup and initial discovery. The very first step here is preparation. And this is absolutely crucial. It happens before an incident ever occurs. This is the proactive setup phase. Building an incident response team, creating robust policies, drafting detailed procedures, these are all time-consuming activities.
You can't do that stuff during a crisis.
Exactly. Incidents are inherently time-sensitive. Waiting until an attack is underway to start building these structures is, well, a recipe for disaster. You need pre-approved structures, trained personnel, and established communication channels ready to activate at a moment's notice. This phase is all about proactively setting the stage for an efficient and lawful response, ensuring your internal 911 service is fully functional before the emergency actually happens. Hashtag 3.3.2 identification. Okay, still in Act 1, the next step is identification. This falls into our initial discovery part. This is how incidents are actually found out about.
How do they usually get discovered?
Well, they can be discovered accidentally by a user or an administrator, which really underscores the importance of proper training for all personnel on how to recognize and report suspicious activity. Everyone's potentially a sensor.
Good point. Everyone needs basic awareness.
Definitely. Incidents are also frequently discovered during routine log reviews, looking through logs from firewalls, intrusion detection systems, IDS, IPEs, routers, servers. Those logs hold the clues. A more recent development aiding identification is the Security Incident Management, SIM, device, sometimes called SIM for Security Information and Event Management. These devices correlate logs from diverse sources across the network, looking for hidden patterns and anomalies that might indicate an incident that individual logs might miss.
So they connect the dots between different systems.
Exactly. A SIM or SIM device has the potential to become the most effective tool for detecting incidents by providing that centralized, intelligent view of security events across the entire infrastructure. Now, the identification phase typically involves several preliminary investigation steps. First, determine if a crime has actually occurred. That's the overarching goal initially. If an accidental discovery prompted the alert, the team will review the complaint to verify it's a true incident, not, a false alarm.
Filter out the noise.
Right. They might inspect the damage, particularly in malicious code outbreaks where multiple machines might be infected. However, caution is critical here. Inspecting a compromised machine in an unauthorized access scenario could overwrite or damage crucial evidence. So this step needs very careful consideration. Don't just jump in.
Handle with care.
Absolutely. The lead investigator will interview witnesses to confirm observations and gather more context. What did they see? When? And of course, they will examine logs, assuming logging is enabled and configured correctly, as these are often incredibly rich sources of information. Finally, the preliminary investigation identifies the investigation requirements. Once an event is confirmed as a true incident, the lead investigator meets with senior management. They determine the specific goals for the investigation. What do we actually want to achieve with this response? This sets the scope and guides the next steps. Hashtag 3.3.3 notification. Okay, once an incident is identified and confirmed, notification is the next logical step. Our primary job as information security professionals is usually to alert senior management to the event and the possibility for it to escalate into a full-blown incident. Keep them informed. Crucially, though, the decision on whether to notify external parties like the media, law enforcement, business partners, or customers, that decision is typically made by senior management, often with input from the legal staff.
So it's not the tech team's call to go public?
Generally not, no. It's usually not the responsibility of the incident response team itself. Their role is to provide the facts, the technical details, the impact assessment, not to make the public relations or legal decisions, although they will certainly provide input into those decisions. Hashtag 3.3.4, preservation and containment. Now we move into Act 2, active containment and investigation. This is a deeply critical phase. Preservation and containment. My mentor once shared a line from Sun Tzu's The Art of War that perfectly encapsulates this. Ponder and deliberate before you move. Act thoughtfully.
Good advice in a crisis.
Especially here, this wisdom is particularly relevant because we're dealing with two very sensitive types of data. First, transient data. This is information that's lost at shutdown, things like open network connections or programs currently running only in memory. And second, fragile data. This is data that's easily altered on the hard disk, even by just looking at it, sometimes like last access timestamps on files.
So data that disappears or changes easily.
Exactly. We must do our absolute best to preserve this evidence during the incident response phase. And this is where an organization's computer security incident response team, the CST, their procedures truly become vital. The preservation of evidence is often referred to as freezing the scene, as we discussed. It's paramount for any subsequent forensic investigation.
Freeze the scene. Got it. And containment.
Right. Alongside preservation is containment. This is the process of trying to keep the incident from affecting more systems on the network, stop the spread. This might involve drastic, but sometimes necessary, actions such as immediately removing compromised or infected systems from the network, maybe disconnecting them from the internet, or both. The goal is to halt the spread of an attack. It's like building a digital firewall around the compromised area, isolating the threat before it contaminates the entire environment. Hashtag 3.3.5 analysis. Okay, next in Act 2 is the analysis phase. Here, the scene is meticulously documented. Serial numbers of all involved equipment are recorded. Machines are prepared to be moved, if necessary, to the forensic processing stage. In some instances, the CSIRT itself might be required to perform the initial forensic backup or bitstream backup of the drives involved, but more often, this specialized task is handled by a dedicated forensic team. This helps maintain objectivity and ensures specialized expertise is applied.
Separation of duties again.
Often, yes. Forms like the Incident Analysis Form from CSIRT, the Computer Emergency Response Team, are used to systematically record all relevant details. This ensures that no piece of information is overlooked during the chaos. This form acts as a structured narrative of the incident, which is vital for the subsequent investigation and for proving what happened later on. Hashtag 3.3.6 Eradication and Recovery. Once the scene has been frozen, contained, and analyzed, we move to eradication and recovery. Still in Act 2. The goal here is twofold. First, fix the underlying problem that allowed the incident to happen in the first place. Second, prevent it from ever recurring.
Get rid of it and make sure it doesn't come back.
Exactly. In many organizations, there's often a clear separation of duties here too, meaning that a different group, maybe computer operations or the core information security team, might be responsible for implementing the fix, not necessarily the CSIRT itself. However, if the responsibility does fall to the CSIRT, their focus shifts from just investigating to actively stopping the immediate incident and then establishing robust measures to prevent future occurrences.
So like patching systems or updating software.
Right. For example, in a malicious code attack, this would involve not only cleaning up the initial outbreak to prevent more infections, but also updating antivirus software, maybe deploying patches, hardening systems to stop future virus outbreaks of that type. If systems are damaged beyond repair, they might need to be recovered from backups. And if no recent clean backups exist, which happens then the systems may need a complete reinstallation from scratch to ensure they are uninfected before being returned to production.
A full rebuild sometimes. Ouch.
It happens. This phase is all about restoring normal, secure operations and ideally building back stronger and more resilient than before. Hashtag 3.3.7 presentation. Following eradication and recovery, we have the presentation phase. This kind of bridges Act 2 and Act 3. It involves the incident response team formally handing over the investigation to the forensics team if they are separate entities. This handover includes all the meticulously gathered documentation like those incident response sheets, the target systems themselves or images of them, and any forensic backups that were made. Any specific evidence discovered during the incident response is presented, and from this point forward, the forensic team typically takes over the really deep dive investigation.
And if it's a smaller company where the teams are the same?
Good question. For smaller or medium-sized enterprises where the incident response and forensic teams might be one and the same people, this presentation might simply involve reporting and handing over the findings and evidence directly to senior management for their review and decision-making. Hashtag 3.3.8 postmortem review. Okay, now we're firmly in Act 3, learning and long-term improvement. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the real learning, the real improvement happens after the dust settles in the postmortem review. Once the incident response team has turned the evidence over to the forensic team or management, it's time to step back and critically evaluate the entire process from start to finish. The purpose of this phase is absolutely not to assign blame. That's counterproductive. The goal is to identify ways to improve the incident response process for future incidents. It's about fostering a culture of continuous improvement and organizational resilience. How can we do better next time? Because there probably will be a next time.
What kind of things typically come up for improvement in postmortem?
Great question. Typical areas identified often include the incident response plan itself. Was it effective? Did it have gaps? Were the procedures clear? It will probably need at least some tweaking, some refinement to make the process smoother next time, maybe the information dissemination policy. If sensitive information was somehow leaked to the media, or if a team member inappropriately relayed details, a specific policy for information sharing might need to be created or refined. Who talks to whom and when?
Communication controls.
Exactly. Or the incident reporting policy. Did the end user who accidentally discovered the incident actually know who to call or where to report it easily? If not, more training and a clear reporting policy are necessary. Make it easy for people to raise the alarm. Sometimes it involves refining the electronic monitoring statement. You know, those banners you see when you log in. This system is for authorized users only. All access is logged. A clear statement like that reinforces policy, reminds employees of security measures, and also aids in investigations by setting expectations.
Legal and HR territory there, too.
Definitely. Related to that is the audit trail policy. If no policy exists formally stating that logging is taking place, one may be needed. It works in conjunction with the monitoring statement, and sometimes it points to needing additional personnel security controls. For example, if physical access to a building or server room isn't well controlled, it's much harder to rule out insider threats. Controls like physical card readers with logging can help eliminate the general public as a suspect, narrowing the focus of investigations and increasing overall security posture. Hashtag tag 3.3.9, revise the plan or follow up. So the output of that postmortem review directly feeds into this next crucial step. Revise the plan or follow up. Don't just talk about it, do it. This involves actually implementing the changes and improvements identified in the postmortem, assigning actions, tracking them to completion. And even if an incident response went, flawlessly without an obvious need for updating the plan, which is rare, it's still crucial to proactively test its effectiveness against different sorts of attacks.
Don't rest on your laurels, basically.
Exactly. For instance, if the plan performed exceptionally well during a virus outbreak, great. But now, consider how robust would it be against a sophisticated system compromise or a large-scale denial of service attack. Constant revision and testing ensure the plan remains agile and effective against an ever-evolving threat landscape. It's never set it and forget it in cybersecurity. It's a continuous cycle. Hashtag 3.3.1 Euro International CSIRTs. Just as a final note on process on an international scale, it's worth mentioning organizations like Trusted Introducer. They began certifying European Computer Security Incident Response Teams, CSIRTs, back in September 2000. They use documented procedures to evaluate these teams, classifying them as listed, accreditation candidate, or fully accredited.
So like a standard for response teams.
Essentially, yes. This provides a crucial level of standardization and trust across borders for incident response capabilities, which is really essential in today's globally interconnected digital world. An incident in one country can easily affect others. Hashtag Tech4, the first responder's critical role.
So we've walked through this comprehensive process, this three-act play, from prevention all the way to postmortem and revision. But it really sounds like the very first people on the scene, the first responders, in the cyber world have an incredible, almost make-or-break responsibility. What exactly are their procedures, and why is their role so critical?
Their role is paramount, yeah. You could argue it's the most critical part of a computer crime investigation. Imagine if we could go back in time and literally freeze time at the instant a crime took place, examining every single detail with perfect, untouched evidence.
That would be amazing for investigators.
Wouldn't it? Well, first responders in cyber forensics have a similar power in a way, but also a similar risk of accidentally destroying that perfect, pristine evidence. If done correctly, following what we call forensically sound practices, their initial actions lay a solid, admissible foundation for the entire investigation that follows. But if they make a mistake, even an innocent one, like rebooting a machine prematurely, the whole case can potentially crumble, and crucial evidence can be rendered useless in court.
The stakes are really high then, right from the first minute.
Incredibly high. This is why every incident must be treated from the very beginning as if it will eventually end up in court. You have to assume it will face that level of scrutiny. Hashtag 4.1.11 forensic process. And this is precisely why a rigorous, standardized forensic process must be followed for every incident, guiding those first responders and everyone after them. It's an iterative journey, really, where each phase feeds the next, ensuring nothing is overlooked and integrity is maintained. This process generally includes these phases: preparation, collection, examination, analysis, and reporting. And the first responder is an integral part of that crucial collection phase.
Okay, let's break those down. What's involved in each phase?
Sure. Preparation, as we touched on with the overall IR plan, happens long before an incident. It's about establishing clear policies, procedures, and standards specifically for forensic handling. It includes critical details like ensuring all software used by the responders is legally licensed. Why? Because law enforcement generally cannot use evidence collected with pirated software. It taints the case.
Wow, didn't think of that. Licensing matters.
It does. Preparation also involves training personnel, having forensically clean, media-ready things like blank hard drives or USB sticks that are wiped clean, and equipping response workstations with the necessary specialized collection hardware and software. It's about being fully ready for anything before it happens. Then comes collection. This is the phase where first responders are actively engaged on the scene. Their job is to minimize any loss of electronic evidence, especially that volatile data we talked about. They must meticulously document all procedures, they complete every click, every command typed, and critically, they need to verify and hash all collected data for integrity.
Hashing. Like creating a digital fingerprint?
Exactly. Hashing creates a unique digital fingerprint for a file or a disk image. If even one single bit of that data changes later, the hash value changes completely, proving the evidence has been tampered with or corrupted. This phase is absolutely fundamental to legal admissibility. After collection comes examination. During this phase, forensics practitioners take a holistic and, importantly, impartial look at the evidence collected. Contrary to what you might see in dramatized portrayals, their function is unbiased. Detect hidden, obscured, or encrypted data, and then produce an objective examination report detailing what was found. They don't jump to conclusions, they follow the data where it leads.
Just the facts.
Just the facts. Next is analysis. This is where the who, what, when, and where of an incident are determined by interpreting the examined data. The collected evidence is scrutinized to determine its actual value to a case. What does it prove? What does it show? It's possible that at this stage, it might be determined there is nothing of significant evidentiary value, and that's a valid outcome, not a failure. Sometimes the data just isn't there. Finally, reporting. The final forensic report must contain only relevant information pertinent to the services requested. It shouldn't be speculation. All procedures used and all notes taken during the examination must be preserved meticulously, as they are subject to discovery and testimony in court. Opposing counsel can review them. The examiner must articulate their findings clearly and concisely, ready to defend them under rigorous scrutiny in depositions or on the witness stand. Hashtag 4.1.2 electronic devices and potential evidence.
That forensic process sounds incredibly thorough and demanding. Wow. So when first responders are actually on the scene dealing with the collection phase, what kind of digital breadcrumbs are they typically looking for? What types of electronic devices can actually hold evidence beyond just a standard desktop computer?
Oh, the range is vast, and it's constantly expanding. It often surprises people who aren't deep in this field. While it's impossible to list every single potential source, responders must be prepared for a wide variety of electronic devices and media that can hold crucial evidence. And remember, the volatile nature of many electronic devices means constant vigilance is required to maintain that evidence integrity. Don't accidentally wipe it.
So what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, obviously, we have traditional computer systems themselves, desktops, laptops. They can hold files, video, audio, emails, images, notes, documents, contacts, the usual suspects. But the digital breadcrumbs extend much further. Think about network infrastructure. Devices like routers, switches, and firewalls are potential gold mines. They store logs, access control lists, ACLs, routing tables, MA addresses, security violation logs, all of which can reveal network activity patterns and potentially the path of an attack.
The plumbing of the network holds clues.
Absolutely. Servers, similar to computer systems, but often with higher volumes of critical files, much more detailed system logs, and configuration information that are essential for understanding server-level compromises. Then there are security appliances. Things like network traffic sniffers and intrusion detection systems, IDCs, are literally designed to capture data. They hold binary log captures, intrusion alert logs showing exactly what passed through the network, often in incredibly granular detail.
Okay, infrastructure and security gear. What about personal stuff?
That category is huge and growing all the time. MP3 players, yes, still sometimes relevant. Smart cards, smartphones, digital cameras, personal digital assistants, PDAs if they're still around. These can contain everything from computer files, video, audio recordings, identification credentials, access information, calendars, agendas, notes, communications like texts and emails. A whole life sometimes. And don't forget, storage media. Beyond internal hard drives, we have external hard drives and memory cards, SD cards, USB drives. Obvious targets for files, video, audio, emails, anything stored.
USB sticks everywhere.
Everywhere. And even more specialized devices. Think about global positioning systems, GPS devices. They can hold logs for tracking a suspect's movement, providing crucial location data over time. And digital video recorders, DVRs, like for security cameras. They can store not only video surveillance footage, but also sometimes computer files and audio relevant to a physical crime or a related digital incident.
Wow, it really is everywhere.
It is. The key takeaway is that almost any device that stores or processes digital information can potentially be a source of evidence. First responders need to be aware of this incredibly extensive scope. The digital world is leaving breadcrumbs absolutely everywhere we look. Okay, so considering that vast array of potential evidence sources, the next crucial question becomes, who are these initial responders typically? And what unique challenges do they face when they arrive? The reality, quite often, is that first responders are the organization's existing system and network administrators. And while they are usually excellent at keeping systems running smoothly, they typically lack specific, formal forensics training. Their primary focus, understandably, is usually on restoration, getting things working again, not necessarily on perfect evidence preservation.
So their instincts might be to fix it, which could damage evidence.
Exactly. It's not malicious, it's just a different priority set. This is why it is absolutely crucial for an organization to have clear, comprehensive policies and procedures in place before an incident ever happens. These guidelines must instruct them clearly on what to do, what not to do to avoid contaminating evidence, and whom to contact immediately, like the designated incident lead or forensics expert. Furthermore, legal counsel and human resources representatives should definitely be consulted on all these policies and procedures before implementation, and their expertise will be invaluable once data is actually collected and examined later on.
Makes sense. Get the rules clear beforehand. So who specifically might end up being a first responder?
Let's delineate some specific roles that might act as first responders in different scenarios. The system administrator is often crucial. They are frequently the first to discover anomalies during their daily monitoring or troubleshooting. They can provide vital system configuration details, network topology maps, access logs. However, as we said, their primary concern is usually system availability, which can conflict with forensic preservation needs. Therefore, it's paramount that system administrators receive at least basic incident response training to understand forensic best practices so they don't inadvertently destroy evidence while trying to fix the immediate problem.
Train the sysadmins on forensics basics. Got it.
Then you have forensics personnel. These are the ideal responders, obviously. They are specifically trained to preserve and collect electronic evidence using forensically sound methods. They come equipped with specialized tools and software. Their role is to provide that unbiased forensic analysis and determine the evidentiary value of collected material. They know the rules of evidence inside and out.
The
pros. Finally, though, we have non-forensics personnel. Think about it. Computers are ubiquitous. They're everywhere in almost every home and work environment today. So anyone can inadvertently become a first responder. A regular employee might stumble upon something suspicious. Therefore, organizations must take steps to train all personnel on the basic steps to take if an incident occurs. At a minimum, who to call immediately. This ensures that even non-forensic staff understand the policies and can contribute to initiating a forensically sound process rather than making things worse. An example tool that can help here is something like the FCC's Computer Security Incident Form. It provides a structured way for anyone to record detailed information accurately, ensuring nothing critical is missed in those initial moments.
So, given all this context, the different types of responders, the huge range of evidence, what does this all mean when a first responder actually walks into a live incident situation? What's the absolute #1 rule they need to follow, and what are their immediate priorities in those chaotic opening moments?
Okay, the #1 rule. The absolute prime directive for incident response is unequivocally preserve as much evidence as possible. Everything else flows from that.
Preserve the evidence.
Above all else.
Within safety limits, yes.
Yeah.
When a first responder walks into a live incident, their initial steps need to be a carefully choreographed dance. It involves securing the scene, gaining cooperation from people there, and meticulous documentation, all while maintaining their own safety and the safety of others.
Okay, so what are those immediate priorities?
Their initial priorities usually include, first, establishing a cordial relationship. This sounds soft, but it's essential. You need to quickly gain maximum cooperation from personnel on-site and from management. Management will typically assign a designated approving authority, or DAA, someone authorized to make decisions about organizational assets and work with the responder. Without cooperation, the whole process becomes infinitely harder and potentially legally challenged later.
Build rapport quickly. Makes sense. Second, working efficiently and documenting all events. The responder must immediately start taking detailed notes. Dates, times, actions taken, observations made. They should use a known good time source, like a synchronized cell phone clock for accuracy. These notes are absolutely critical because prosecution, if it happens, can take years. Memories fade. And these notes are subject to discovery in a criminal case, meaning they can be presented and scrutinized in court. Every detail, no matter how small it seems, could be crucial.
Document everything.
Meticulously.
Everything. Third, securing the safety of all personnel first. This is always the top priority, even before touching any equipment or evidence. No piece of digital evidence is worth a human life or injury. Safety first, always. And fourth, preventing anyone from taking materials from the scene. All areas beyond the immediate workstation under investigation should be treated as part of the potential crime scene to prevent contamination or removal of evidence. Basically, establish a perimeter and enforce a don't touch anything rule until things are documented and secured. Okay, secure the scene, secure the people, document, cooperate. What about physical dangers?
Right. Regarding health and safety, especially with electronic evidence, there are several crucial considerations responders need to be aware of. Always unplug the power before attempting to work on internal components of a system. Obvious, but critical. Be aware that some equipment, especially things with large capacitors like old CRT monitors or power supplies, may hold a residual electric charge even after being unplugged. Handle with care. The dangers of liquids and electricity mixing are obvious, but always worth reiterating, especially if there's been physical damage or, say, a fire suppression system activation. Beware of potentially dangerous radio waves, such as high-power microwave transmissions from certain equipment, which can cause harm with prolonged exposure. And finally, be cautious of laser components on equipment, like in optical drives, CD, DVD, Blu-ray. Looking directly into them could potentially cause eye damage.
Good safety reminders. Now, you mentioned preserving evidence. What if someone is actively destroying it when the responder arrives?
That's a critical and often debated action. If destructive activity is clearly occurring, for instance, you see a suspect actively trying to delete files, format drives, or physically destroy equipment, the responder should immediately pull the plug on the equipment involved. Just yank the power cord from the wall.
Pull the plug. Isn't that usually bad for systems?
It can be, yes. A hard shutdown isn't ideal for system health, but this is one of the few instances where powering off a device without proper shutdown procedures is not only acceptable, but absolutely necessary. Why? To preserve evidence that would otherwise be permanently lost in seconds. It's a last resort action, taken only when active destruction is witnessed, but it's a vital one in those circumstances. Better to risk file system corruption than lose the only evidence of the crime. Okay, so with the scene secured and safety ensured, the detailed work of collecting and preserving the actual evidence begins. First is identifying potential evidence. The responder needs to meticulously locate and record all identifying markings on the system components, especially serial numbers. They uniquely identify hardware. If no serial number is present, they must document all other possible identifying properties, model numbers, asset tags, any unique stickers or damage. When seizing computers or components, all cables and their corresponding ports must be labeled clearly before disconnection. Why? For proper reassembly later at a forensics lab. This ensures the integrity of the original setup and aids in replicating the scene or testing, eliminating confusion about what was connected where.
Label everything before you unplug it. Smart.
Very smart. Next comes collecting volatile data. As we discussed, this is information that is only present when the machine is turned on and would be lost if the machine is shut down or rebooted. Examples include currently open network connections, running processes, loaded kernel modules, clipboard contents, temporary system information, and memory resident programs or malware. If a network intrusion has occurred, an attacker might still have active connections running, or malware might only be running in memory.
Capturing this is crucial.
So how do you capture it without shutting down? The process requires using trusted toolset software brought in by the responder, ideally run from clean external media like a USB drive. You don't want to install anything on the suspect machine if possible. You capture the volatile data, like memory dumps, network status, process lists, to forensically clean media. Then, you hash all the collected files immediately, recording these hash values meticulously in your notes. This ensures the evidence's integrity right from the moment of collection.
Right. So you gave that example earlier of using Netcat to grab IP configuration. That's the kind of thing you mean by using trusted tools for volatile data.
Exactly. Netcat is a great example of a versatile, often pre-existing or easily portable utility that can be used for quick, non-intrusive data collection across a network. Let's quickly recap that flow for clarity. On the responder computer, your clean machine, you set up Netcat to listen on a specific port, say 4444, and redirect any incoming data to a file on your clean media, like drive G. The command might be nc.exe-l lp4444g.
Listening for data.
Then, on the victim computer, you execute a command to get the data you need, like ipconfig for network settings, and pipe its output to Netcat, telling Netcat to send it to the responder's IP address, say 192.168.168.1.254, on that same port, 4444, commanded.ipconfig nc 192.168.1.2544444. This leverages existing utilities on the victim system, minimizing the footprint the changes made to the system.
Minimal impact. Got it.
Once the data transfer completes back on the responder computer, you immediately verify the contents, type g ipconfig.txt, then hash the collected file, md5deep.exe, j to ipconfig.md5, save that hash to a file, md5deep.ext, ipconfig.md5, and verify the saved hash value, type g ipconfig.md5. This whole meticulous process ensures that even fleeting volatile data is captured with forensic soundness, its integrity proven by the hash.
Seems like a careful dance. Are there easier ways?
Well, beyond manual commands like that, many organizations use automated volatile data collection tools. These are often custom scripts or preferably static binaries. Static binaries are generally preferred because they are compiled to be totally self-contained. They don't rely on or modify libraries already present on the victim system, thus minimizing the risk of trampling on other evidence. Less invasive. Live CDs or USBs, like the well-known, though perhaps aging now, eFence's Helix, or newer alternatives like Canon or Sift Workstation are also popular. They provide a complete forensically sound environment booted from external media from which to work on the target system without altering its internal storage.
Okay, lots of options for grabbing that volatile stuff. What comes next?
Immediately after securing the scene and collecting any critical volatile data, responders should conduct the initial interview. Don't wait. This is a crucial opportunity to obtain information that might not be available later. People's memories fade, stories change, or they might lawyer up. You want to talk to system administrators, users of the affected system, witnesses, maybe even potential suspects who might be more willing to talk early on before they have time to fully process or consult legal counsel.
What kind of info are you trying to get?
You aim to collect things like signed statements if possible, owner-user information for the systems, contact details, passwords if fillingly provided, never coerce, any known encryption keys, internet aliases or handles used, email addresses, the internet service provider, ISP information, the system's primary purpose, details about any remote backups or cloud storage used, and information about any removable media typically used with the system. These initial notes and statements are absolutely vital for guiding the later technical examination and, potentially, for testimony, as the legal system often moves slowly. Now, alongside collection is documenting the electronic crime scene. This must be done meticulously. You're essentially creating a historical record, a snapshot in time that tells the story of the incident as it was found.
Telling the story, how do you do that visually?
This involves extensive visual documentation. We're talking 360-degree pictures of the entire room, the workspace, any related areas. Video recording is great if available and permissible, walking through the scene. Crucially, screenshots should be taken of active programs or the desktop on any running compromised system before pulling the plug, if possible, and safe. Why? This helps profile the user or the attacker's activity. For example, a screenshot might show a specific college homepage open alongside a chat program logged in with a particular online alias. That gives you context. Or maybe the presence of a secure file transfer program like WinSCP is visible. That might indicate a more advanced user, perhaps some low encrypting file transfers, or it could show the destination of stolen data. Or it might capture error messages or command prompts showing recent activity.
So the screen tells a tale too.
It absolutely can. Responders also need to look for physical clues within the scene itself. Inspecting a suspect's computer tower, are there signs of recent opening? Are there unusual external devices plugged in? Or discovering something like KVM switches, keyboard, video, mouse switches hidden under a desk. These allow one set of peripherals to control multiple computers. Finding one suggests multiple computers might be involved, prompting further inquiry and potentially leading to the discovery of additional relevant systems the responder didn't initially know about.
Little physical details can open up new leads.
Exactly. Every physical detail in the environment contributes to the story of the incident and can provide crucial context or leads for the investigation. Document it all. Now, to perform all these complex and critical tasks effectively, especially under pressure, preparedness is key. And that means having the right evidence collection tools and equipment readily available. Organizations serious about incident response need to maintain a versatile toolkit, often stored in a dedicated go bag or response kit, ready for deployment at any moment.
What's typically in one of these go bags?
Well, it includes general equipment like plenty of forensically clean media for capturing disk images or collecting files, things like verified, clean, external hard drives or large USB sticks. Also, a good flashlight for inspecting dark corners or inside computer cases, a camera, preferably dedicated, not just a phone, and maybe video voice recorders for that documentation we just talked about. Absolutely essential is a write blocker. This is a hardware device that sits between the evidence drive and the responder's analysis machine. It allows data to be read from the evidence drive, but physically prevents any data from being written back to it, protecting evidence integrity from accidental modification.
A one-way street for data.
Crucial.
Also needed, a responder laptop, pre-configured with all the necessary forensic software tools, and a multi-card reader to handle various types of flash memory cards found in phones, cameras, or other devices.
Okay, that's the general gear. What about physical tools? Right, you often need to get physical. So various hardware tools are needed for potential physical access and disassembly if authorized and necessary. This includes various sizes and types of screwdrivers, flathead, Phillips, Torx, maybe a precision tool set for tiny screws in laptops or mobile devices, pliers, wire cutters, or snips for cable ties perhaps, hex nut tools, and tweezers for handling small components like jumpers. This comprehensive toolkit ensures first responders can handle both the digital and the physical aspects of securing and processing an electronic crime scene. It's about being ready for anything, from a complex software exploit to needing to carefully dismantle a hard drive enclosure.
Okay, this next point is absolutely, utterly non-negotiable for legal admissibility and the overall integrity of any investigation. The chain of custody.
Chain of custody. You hear that term a lot in crime shows. What does it mean here? It means exactly what it sounds like. To ensure the authenticity and integrity of electronic evidence, a meticulously documented chain of custody must be established and maintained from the precise moment evidence is seized until its final disposition, whether that's return, destruction, or permanent archiving. The chain of custody is a formal, written, documented record of all handlers of the electronic evidence. It tracks who had it, when they had it, where they had it, and what they did with it, or why they transferred it.
A complete history of the evidence's handling.
A complete unbroken history. It must strictly adhere to corporate policies as well as any applicable local, state, national, and even international jurisdictions and legal requirements. The rules can vary. If this chain is broken, meaning there's a gap in the documentation where someone unaccounted for could have accessed or tampered with the evidence, or if it's poorly documented, the evidence can be, and often is, thrown out in court, rendered inadmissible regardless of how compelling it might seem.
Wow. So a documentation error can sink the whole case.
It absolutely can. This is a common and critical pitfall for inexperienced responders or poorly managed processes. A typical chain of custody form, like the ones often provided with forensic toolkits or software suites like Helix used to includes essential components. Things like a unique case number, detailed descriptions of each piece of evidence, make, model, serial number, the names and signatures of all individuals who collected, handled, transported, or stored the evidence, the exact dates and times of transfer between handlers, and relevant location information, where it was collected, where it was stored.
Every handoff documented.
Every single one. This form acts as the unbroken historical record of the evidence's journey, proving it has not been tampered with or compromised at any point. It's the integrity backbone of the entire forensic process. You cannot skip this or do it sloppily. Okay, almost done with the first responder actions. Finally, we need to address transporting electronic evidence. Once collected and documented, it needs to get safely to the lab or secure storage. Due to the delicate nature of electronic equipment and storage media, extra care is required during transport. It's not like throwing bricks in a bag.
Right. Hard drives and phones are fragile.
Very. Electronic media, like hard drives or memory cards, should always be placed in anti-static bags first. This protects against electrostatic discharge, ESD, which can damage sensitive components. Then, they should be wrapped in anti-static bubble wrap or placed in padded containers to protect against physical shock during transit. You don't want to accidentally fry or break your evidence.
Anti-static bags and padding. Got it.
Yep. First responders should transport these materials in sturdy boxes or protective cases to a designated secure evidence room or forensic lab. Each item, each box, must be clearly labeled, usually with evidence tape sealing it, and accompanied by its corresponding chain of custody forms. The forms travel with the evidence. Once the material safely arrives at the evidence room or lab, the chain of custody documents are appropriately updated, signed over to the evidence custodian or receiving analyst, and the evidence is logged into secure storage. While some organizations might occasionally use bonded courier services for transport, extreme caution is advised, as you temporarily lose direct control over the handling and environment. Direct transport by the responder or a trusted agent is usually preferred.
What about temperature? Does that matter?
Great point. It's crucial to consider the environmental factors during transport. Electronic evidence is susceptible to damage from extreme cold or heat. If you're transporting evidence by vehicle, especially over long distances, or if left in a parked car, or by air cargo, you must account for the potential temperature extremities of each environment to prevent damage. A hard drive left cooking in a hot car trunk or freezing in an unheated cargo hold can experience data loss or physical failure.
Okay, so protect from static, shock, and extreme temperatures. What materials do you need for all this?
The basic materials needed for transporting evidence usually include a good supply of anti-static bags and bubble wrap, cable ties for securing cables or items within bags, evidence forms, including chain of custody, evidence bags, tamper-evident bags are best, evidence tape for sealing packages, cable tags for labeling, scissors, permanent felt tip markers, self-adhesive labels, maybe some white masking tape for temporary notes, and sturdy cardboard boxes or transport cases of various sizes. Having these materials prepared and ready in the response kit ensures a secure and forensically sound transport. This is the last critical step performed by the first responder before the deep dive forensic analysis truly begins back at the lab.
That's incredibly detailed, highlighting just how much meticulous work goes into just handling the evidence properly, even before analysis.
Wow. Now, given the sheer volume of potential data on all these devices, does the type of crime or the specific incident category change what you're primarily looking for as an investigator? Are there common evidence types typically associated with different kinds of cybercrime? That's an excellent question, and yes, it absolutely does influence the approach. While it's impossible to definitively profile every single piece of electronic evidence for every conceivable crime, every case is unique, certain categories of incidents do tend to leave specific types of digital breadcrumbs more often than others. So, tailoring your search strategy based on the suspected crime category makes the investigation much more efficient and effective. It helps guide where to focus your initial analytical efforts in that potential sea of data.
Okay, so can you give some examples? What do you look for in different scenarios?
Sure. Let's take general crimes, where the computer might be just one tool used, or maybe just a repository of information related to a non-cyber crime, for instance, a financial fraud investigation, or maybe a harassment case. In these cases, responders and analysts commonly look for evidence in email communications, obviously. They can reveal intent, discussions with accomplices, plans, timelines, details of the crime, images, which might be photos related to the crime, screenshots saved, incriminating visual evidence. Internet browser history is often huge. It provides a timeline of online activity, sites visited, search queries performed, potentially revealing research interests or online movements related to the case, and general user information, things like account details stored, documents created, contact lists, calendars, anything that can help profile the individual and their digital life connected to the events.
Okay, that makes sense for general use cases. What about network intrusions?
Right. For network and computer intrusions, where an attacker has specifically gained unauthorized access to systems or data, the focus shifts sharply to understanding how they got in, what they did while inside, and if they left any backdoors. Here, critical evidence typically includes system logs from servers, workstations, firewalls, VPNs, any device involved. These record access attempts, failed and successful, commands executed, system changes made, files accessed, the timeline of the attack, binary captures from network traffic sniffers or full packet capture systems, if available. These can provide the raw data of the malicious communications that actually cross the network during the attack. Configuration files of compromised systems or network devices. Attackers often modify these to maintain persistence, open backdoors, disable security settings, or redirect traffic. Finding those changes is key. And detailed system information retrieved during volatile data collection or analysis, things like running processes, was malware running? Installed software, did they install hacking tools? Had user accounts, did they create new ones? Network connections open at the time? Understanding the state of the system post-compromise.
Much more technical, focused on the system's state and network activity.
Exactly. Finally, let's consider highly sensitive cases like child exploitation or abuse. The search for evidence here often involves a very specific, tragically common pattern. Obviously, the primary targets are the images and video files themselves, the illegal content. Locating and recovering this is paramount. Investigators will pay close attention to digital cameras and their associated media memory cards found at the scene, as these might have been used to create the content. There's often an investigation into detailed directory conventions on storage devices. Offenders frequently use specific, sometimes complex, naming schemes for files and folders, often use hidden folders, or employ encryption or steganography, hiding data within other files, to conceal illegal content. Recognizing these patterns is crucial. And again, internet browser history and communication logs, chat, email, are vital to trace access to illicit websites, online communities, peer-to-peer sharing networks, or communications with other offenders or victims.
A very specific and difficult area of investigation.
Extremely. Understanding these commonalities, these typical evidence types for different crime categories, allows forensic teams to streamline their search and prioritize the most likely sources of relevant evidence for each type of incident. It's about being smart and targeted in that vast ocean of digital data. Hashtag key learning points and recap. All right, as we begin to wrap up this deep dive into incident response, let's quickly reiterate some of the most critical takeaways we've covered. First, a computer security incident response team, the CFRR, is effectively an organization's 9/11 service for cyber incidents. It's absolutely not about a single hero. It requires diverse skill sets, technical, legal, managerial, communication, and meticulous planning across all these various disciplines. Preparation is key. We've also seen how incident response, incident handling, and incident management are distinct but tightly integrated processes. Each plays a vital role in the life cycle of dealing with a cyber threat, from that immediate containment all the way through to strategic recovery and, importantly, learning from the event.
And crucially, we really underscored that prevention is truly worth a pound of cure, maybe even more, in cybersecurity. Investing proactively in robust controls like the different types of firewalls we discussed, intrusion prevention systems, regular vulnerability assessments, and penetration testing is far less costly and disruptive in the long run than dealing with the chaotic aftermath of a successful attack. We also touched upon those complex financial and reputational implications surrounding computer crime reporting, and that constant, difficult balance organizations must strike between transparency, legal requirements, and potential damage control.
Absolutely. And recognizing that not all incidents are created equal is fundamental. Whether you're dealing with a denial of service attack, malicious code spreading, unauthorized access and data theft, or internal inappropriate usage, each category demands unique, tailored response procedures. And this is precisely where a solid upfront risk assessment becomes indispensable. It allows organizations to prioritize their defenses and tailor their response strategies specifically to the threats they are most likely to face. It's about being prepared for your most probable threats, not just generic ones.
This entire process really highlights the truly multidisciplinary nature of an effective incident response team. You need everyone working together, from the technical representatives on the front lines doing the collection and analysis, to legal counsel ensuring compliance every step of the way, and human resources managing the often sensitive human element. Every role is vital and deeply interconnected. And let's not forget the absolutely critical role of those first responders in preserving the electronic crime scene, often working under immense pressure and incredibly tight time constraints to capture that fleeting, fragile digital evidence before it disappears.
Which brings us right back to the essential forensic process itself. That cycle of preparation, collection, examination, analysis, and reporting. Every single step, especially collection and handling, must adhere strictly to forensically sound practices. This demands meticulous, contemporaneous documentation and, as we stressed, an absolutely unbroken chain of custody. This isn't just about finding the evidence, it's about ensuring that evidence will actually stand up to scrutiny, whether that's in a court of law, an internal investigation, or a regulatory audit. It's about applying scientific rigor and legal awareness to the digital realm, because if your evidence isn't collected and handled cleanly, documented properly, it effectively isn't evidence at all in the eyes of the law.
It's a huge amount of information, really covering a lot of ground, from prevention all the way through to postmortem review. But it really does all seem to boil down to preparedness, having a plan, precision and execution, and protecting those critical digital traces at all costs. Every action, or even inaction, can have profound consequences in the sensitive, high-stakes world of incident response. Hashtag outro. Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of incident response. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the intricacies of cyber preparedness and reaction.
And as you reflect on all this, maybe consider this thought-provoking idea. Think about the deep interconnectedness of systems and data in your own organization, or maybe even just your personal digital life. What's one unexpected ripple effect you could imagine stemming from a seemingly small, isolated security incident? How might that impact elements completely beyond the initial technical issue, things like trust, operations, or even safety? It's rarely just about the code, is it?
That's a great question to ponder. Those ripple effects can be huge. Next time, we promise we'll move beyond the immediate response and delve into the fascinating world of advanced digital forensics techniques. We'll explore how investigators dig even deeper once the scene is secured and the initial evidence has been collected. Until then, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember that being well-informed, as we've seen today, is truly the first, most critical step in being well-prepared.